If you follow politics long enough, one thing you'll get used to hearing every so often, especially from the ABC, is the imminent demise of the Liberal Party. After the Aston by-election, they're all at it again.
What we've seen from the opposition is this strategy of opposing everything, everywhere, all at once. And last night, it blew up in their faces. And if they keep listening to all those who say, you're not right-wing enough, you're not conservative enough, well, they're on the path to oblivion.
But Keith Wallahan, it's clear, and it's not just in Victoria, it's federally last year, it's the New South Wales election earlier in March. Voters aren't buying what you're selling.
We've heard from commentators over the many decades it's the end of the Liberal Party, and it never is.
Keith Wallahan was right, of course. Just think back to 2008.
It's a dismal time for Liberal leaders across the country. For the first time in the party's history, they're in opposition in every one of the nation's 9 parliaments.
But the ABC's Michael Rowland must have been oblivious to this history. I revisited this history tonight with Campbell Newman, who back in 2008, as Lord Mayor of Brisbane, mind you, he was the most senior Liberal in the nation.
Well, they did recover, and they recovered because of I suppose, extraordinary efforts of Tony Abbott as a leader of the opposition who prosecuted, the job with conviction and with relentless tenacity. And that is what it takes to actually win from opposition.
Yes, 15 years ago, the Liberals were on the ropes. Stick around for that full interview with Campbell Newman later. But facts and history don't hold back the leftist narrative at the ABC.
The former Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull reckons the Liberal Party, pulled by what he describes as the Murdoch media, is going too far to the right. Is the Liberal Party too beholden to News Corp, in your view?
Really? News Corp? What planet is Rowland on? He cites as his oracle Malcolm Turnbull, who was also on the ABC Today, his favourite haunt of Radio National. Let's see if it was good analysis or score settling and fake news.
Well, the Liberal Party has moved increasingly to the right, and the state of Victoria is very much a smaller Liberal state. So the Liberal Party in Victoria and its federal leadership is increasingly out of touch with the people whose votes they need to win elections.
Really? The ABC takes as gospel this nonsense about the party being too far to the right from a bloke who lost 14 seats at the 2016 election, barely hanging on to government, and whose policies were to the right of the current Liberals. Turnbull, for instance, rejected outright the push for an Indigenous voice. He ridiculously derided it as a third chamber. And Turnbull also never committed to net zero by 2050. That was done later by Scott Morrison, taking the party further to the Green left on climate than Turnbull ever dared. The ABC not only amplifies Turnbull, but they take up his arguments, even though he's been proven wrong so many times before.
If this legislation is knocked back, Kevin Rudd will have no choice but to go to a double dissolution election.
What would happen to the party if it had to fight a double dissolution on this issue?
The party would be, we would be wiped out.
Yeah, that was Turnbull back in 2009 when I worked for him. Well, instead of a double dissolution, of course, Tony Abbott rolled Turnbull and he called Rudd's bluff. So Rudd was rolled by Julia Gillard and Abbott pushed Labor into minority government before crushing them in a landslide 3 years later. But at the time, how did the ABC see the demise of Turnbull and Abbott's ascension?
Things just going from bad to worse for the Liberal Party. I spoke to someone before the resignations had happened and they said that things for the Liberal Party had never been so dire.
Tony Abbott leads the Liberal Party. Will he turn it into a fringe party of the right, as some disgruntled Liberals were warning before the vote?
Well, I think that's certainly the danger.
Yeah, a fringe party that went on to govern right across the nation. Yeah, that's right. These national cycles have worked the other way too. In 2014, governments, state and federal, all except for South Australia, were held by the Liberals. Look, there's a truism that I always go back to in politics, and that is that nothing is ever as good or as bad as it seems. It's so true. John Howard was once ridiculed for such poor polling as opposition leader that the Bulletin asked, why does he bother? As you know, he went on to be Australia's second longest serving Prime Minister and certainly one of our best. The Liberal Party is in a world of pain right now. It exists to wield political power and it's not doing that at state or federal level on mainland Australia. But it's been there before. So that's the big lesson about this situation. It's not the end of the Liberal Party. It's not a hopeless position. I was reminded about what's required on Saturday night. And no, I wasn't watching the Aston by-election coverage, which I'm certain was great, but forgive me, because as you'll understand, I was watching my beloved Crows in the showdown. The two Adelaide teams in their brutal grudge match that's held twice a year for footy supremacy. Now, my Crows were the best team in the competition back in 2017, but lost the grand final badly. Since then, in 5 seasons, we've not played finals. We've been cellar dwellers. We started this season with 2 losses, and then on Saturday night, this.
Marshall could not bang! Thilthorpe out of the air. Rankin picked his pocket. Oh, he stole his lunch money.
Just fantastic stuff. A bit of guts and determination. Now, there's a long way to go for the Crows. One swallow doesn't make a summer and all the rest of it. But like other clubs before them, the Crows have been rebuilding. That's what you do. The point is clear, right? As a team, as a club, as an organisation, as a political party, you go through hard times, you go through losses. You don't give up, you don't walk away, you don't change your values or what you stand for. You reconnect with your values, you reassess your performance, you scrutinise and boost your personnel, and you crack in, you rebuild, you work your way back. And that's exactly what the Liberals have done before and what they need to do now. It won't be easy, it never is, but don't write them off. Don't try to dance on their grave the way the media and Labor did in the 90s with John Howard and a decade ago with Tony Abbott. The Liberals are in a dire situation, to be sure, and they need to make some important changes. They need to boost membership and make sure members get to choose candidates. Otherwise, why else would you join? They need to give the federal party the power to intervene when state factions go rogue. They've got to reconnect with their core values. This is absolutely critical, and formulate good policy based on those values. The Liberals have to provide a strong and clear alternative, something they simply haven't done in state and federal elections for the past few years. They need to be match fit and ready to govern, because on economic management and energy policy, Labor is only going to make matters worse.